This is the Sonic Truth Dynasty Podcast. Here with me today, Memphis Young from the Dynasty Warzone and Theo Gremminger from Dynasty Life. It is all Dynasty all the time with the Sonic Truth. We've had some Pro Day times come in. That's the latest news. Tet McMillan, is he fast enough? I think so. What do you think?
Yes, I think for his size, anything sub like 4.55, sub high 4.5s was going to be fine. We look back historically where Mike Evans ran. Look back historically to a lot of these guys in that taller, heavier wide receivers, and he stacks up fine. McMillan's game was never about pure speed, never about just getting behind a defense. There's a lot of nuance down there. Big time 50-50 ball guy, great route runner. And you can line them up different spots. So Tet checked off the boxes we needed to see. Even if you add a tiny little sliver on top, Matt, with the Pro Day adjusted, he's fine.
He's fine. You agree, Memphis? Fine.
I think he's more of a Cortland Sutton than a Drake London, but that's okay. Cortland Sutton's a wide receiver 2 for fantasy. So if that's the floor or the end result, that's okay. But yeah, I mean, 4.48 translates to a combine 4.53, right in that Drake London, Cortland Sutton range. I'm cool with that.
We're cool with it.
Yeah,
We're cool with it. We got a lot going on today. We got the my wide receiver, my favorite wide receiver in the draft. We have Memphis's favorite wide receiver. We've got Theo's favorite wide receiver. We've got our favorite rookie running backs we're going to talk about. We've got some fringier free agent signings and their impact on Dynasty we're going to talk about today, as well as the firewall veteran running back that you would take in startups, where after that running back is off the board, then you're just going to be drafting rookie running backs. So there is a threshold because the backup running backs, the backup veterans, have never been in a more precarious position in the NFL ever. That drafting them in startups is very dangerous. So you could draft a handful of these guys up to a point, and then the last few rounds of a startup, if you're not just piling into rookies, you're doing it wrong. So we'll talk about that. There's some fringier free agents that signed early that we never got to talk to on the last show. We're going to try to get to them as well. I want to talk about Kenneth Gainwell in Pittsburgh. Going to talk about De'Ami Brown in Washington, players that are not getting a lot of hype, but I think are interesting. So Tet McMillan, we all agree, though, he is the wide receiver 1 in Dynasty.
For me, he's the wide receiver 1 in this class. And I know there's been some pushback from some, but I'd say he's the consensus wide receiver 1 in this class. He's usually, NFL mock drafts have him going off the board first as well. I think Memphis, he's got the best chance if one of these guys is a top 10 draft pick in this draft class. I think Tet McMillan would be the one with the best chance to get that sort of draft capital. And I think he's also got a firewall, Matt, that if he does start slipping, somewhere in the late teens is where he would get selected off the board. I'm going to say he goes 8th overall to Carolina if I was doing a mock draft today. I think that's sort of Memphis. I know you don't love that, make a bitter beer face on that one, but I know there's people out there like Cody Carpentier has Luther Burden as his wide receiver 1 overall in this class. I know Memphis, that's the way you're leaning with this class, and I can see it. Burden had a really, really good combine day. If you look at the 40, you look at the fact that he was 6 feet tall when a lot of the naysayers said he was going to be like 5'9", 5'10". Weighed in at that DJ Moore like 205 to 208 range. Little hands though, Memphis. Little hands there for Luther. Luther Burden has tiny hands, which Cody Carpentier is hedging his bet now a little bit off the hand size.
Tiny little carny hands, like the Burger King commercial back in the day with the little
hands. He's just a little guy. It's a little baby guy hands.
I'll risk it.
I'm not as big into the fading hand size, but there are people that hate that. And NFL teams, Matt, remember last year, Memphis and Matt, how the Michael Penix, like NFL teams absolutely love the fact that he had these massive size hands. I wonder if it's the opposite here. Some teams are gonna knock him because of the hand size. Not me though. I don't think there's this big enough sample size with that. But there are few guys with the 8.5-inch hands that have hit big at the wide receiver position. Just saying.
Whoa, hold on. You could fade hand size in quotes if you want, but you can't say there's not a big enough sample size. What are you talking about? Realize how much we have, like 1,000 wide receiver hand sizes in Player Profiler. Go to the data analysis tool, go to profile, wide receiver, hand size. It's right there. Get the full database back decades of hand sizes right there at your disposal. And so you could run the numbers. You can put that in a model and you can say, yeah, it is not nearly as predictive as a lot of other metrics, but yes, it matters. The surface area that you have to squeeze a football it's better to have more.
But Matt, would you say that just out off the top of your head, the guys that are measuring him with smaller hand size, most of those guys are later picks? I would go ahead and bet I'll do some research on this. I'm going to go to Player Profiler myself, but look at some of the most recent guys and track who had the sub 9-inch hands, and how they did well when they had top 45 draft capital. It sort of changes the argument, because if I'm looking at Luther Burden in some vacuum of all guys with sub 9-inch hands, then I'm sure there's going to be a lot of misses. But are there guys who were selected inside the top 40 picks with smaller hands? Just sort of to throw it into an argument.
It doesn't matter much, which is why we don't even post it on their main Player Profiler page. We post their arm length. He also has short arms. He's an interesting guy. He's best comparable to Sammy Watkins. And a lot of people like Sammy Watkins coming out of Clemson. He has a very Sammy Watkins-like game. He really does. Some of these comps they're eerily accurate often. But I love Burden because he has a 1,200-yard season with 9 touchdowns and a 70% catch rate. I love that. He was also active on special teams. And you get a discount because he flamed out in his final year, but he was so good that the scout said, come out anyway. And now he's a fringe first rounder. He could go late first or early second, right? In the NFL draft, that's where you expect him to go.
Yeah, if I had to bet money on it, I think he's going to go inside the first round. I know we went through that period of time where a lot of people were dropping him, but that was before the combine. I think the combine helped him overall with the speed and the size. Memphis, do you see a firewall for Burden in the draft capital argument that you're putting in there? You're muted, Memphis.
Oh, I apologize.
Oh my God! Look, he comes on the Sonic Truth. He comes on the Sonic Truth. We're 7 minutes in. His first appearance in the Sonic Truth. He's been doing the Dynasty Warzone, getting in all these reps, getting ready for the Sonic Truth. 7 minutes in, he's muted.
I didn't want you guys to hear the click of my mouse as I was looking at the draft order. I don't see him landing past 25 with the Houston Texans. I know the Texans just picked up Christian Kirk. I think that's a nice free agency, or I guess it's technically a trade pickup, but I think that would be a great fit opposite of Nico Collins in Houston. Probably a year away from being a year away, but I will say this, Theo, and you can argue with me if you want. I think the difference between Tet McMillan as the 1 and Luther Burden as the 1 will come down to landing spot. I have them as 1A, 1B, and if one of them gets a truly favorable landing spot, that could nudge them ahead of the other.
So for me, I somewhat agree with you. And Houston, I went on another show that recently, and that was sort of my dream landing spot for Burden because of how successful the wide receiver 2 has been in that offense for a decent period of time now. Ever since we had the C.J. Stroud, DeMeco Ryans led Texans, you've seen guys in large sample sizes down to small sample sizes and differing styles of play. Stephon Diggs, Noah Brown, Tank Dell. The wide receiver 2 has put up numbers in that offense consistently. And I think with the 7th round pick that they sent for Christian Kirk, it's not going to box them out or deter them from selecting a wide receiver. If they would have given up a 3rd round pick or a 2nd and gone and got a DK Metcalf, I think that changes the narrative. Christian Kirk, it's not going to prevent them from going and adding another wide receiver. Now the Laramie Tunsil one though, Memphis getting rid of Tunsil might put some pressure to get an O lineman there in the 1st round. So that'll be interesting. I don't know. For me, it's going to take a really, really good landing spot for Burden to move up. I currently have him as my wide receiver 4 in this class, which I know is lower than some, but I'm still high on him relatively speaking because Matt and I have been a little higher than consensus on this wide receiver class as a whole for a few months now. I think that when it comes down to it, Emeka Egbuka is just a really, really safe player that I think translates really, really well to the NFL and has a maybe the ceiling is not quite as high as Burden, but the floor is, I think, much better. I think he steps right in. So for me, Puka is my wide receiver 2 in the class. And then I've been high on Golden for a while. Matthew Golden is my wide receiver 3 now. And this is one where I remember, Matt, when we had Jax Falcone in here, he was anti-Golden. We got in a Golden Trey Harris argument. Now Matthew Golden is looking like he could be a top 15 pick, top 20 pick in the NFL draft. So I'm going to have that on my side. And I liked Golden when he was supposed to run 4.48, 4.45. I liked his profile then. So I don't look at him as a guy that is being drafted because he's a 4.29 guy. I look at that as like icing on the cake, and a reason to like him, not to chase his profile. So Golden, I think now, Matt, you get that sort of draft capital with this sort of profile. You start thinking about guys like Jalen Waddle, who really, really excelled and got us a lot of fantasy football points early in their career. So for me, Matthew Golden 3, and then Burden right at 4. And then, Matt, your guy is my wide receiver 5. We'll talk about him in a little bit.
Oh, Elic Ayomanor, that's my guy. Matthew Golden, the 2023 season is concerning. Only played 9 games, but it's Houston, so you would think a guy that runs a 4.29, no matter, 8 games, 9 games, 10 games, however many games it is, there you'd think he would have gone nuclear, but only the 15% target share. I know he transferred for a reason, but he goes to Texas.
And he had good QB play. And he had really good QB play. He had Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning. So he wasn't like he was the victim of a Luther Burden quarterback situation. He had above average.
In Houston in 2023. He was
right. I'm talking about this past year, 58 catches.
I think he was good this year. This year, I think he was much better than he was in 2023. He was sort of the reverse Burden, where, he played in 16 games. So to not even put up 1,000 yards in 16 college games, not even have 100 targets in 16 college games, that is a concern. That's a full NFL season, essentially. So that only 58 catches in what is a full NFL season on an offense that has quality. I mean, Quinn Ewers was almost a handicap. I mean, if only he had Arch Manning. But there was a lot of target competition there. So with all that target competition, I do discount the impact of the receiving yards and the overall production. What I do love, though, are the special teams yards. I love that he was active on special teams. So if you have a guy that's that fast, who's very active on special teams, this is why his best comparable on Player Profiler is Santana Moss. Another just absolute dead-on comp.
And shout out... Memphis, I was just going to say, our friend Alex Dunlap of Roster Watch and Cody Carpentier, who's actually in the chat right now, they both do work with Orange Bloods. And I talked to those guys about Matthew Golden down at the Senior Bowl. If I have a question about anybody Texas-related, Cody and Alex are my go-to sources. And they were both very, very high on Golden at the time. The explosiveness, guys. And I realize the stats are not what we wanted to see. But, Matt, you referenced the teammate competition. Gunnar Helm's going to be drafted. Jaden Blue's going to be drafted. Yes. Isaiah Bond's going to be a day 2 pick. So at the end of the day, his target competition was different. Also, it's 1 year sample size at Texas. Matthew Golden, the narrative was he was supposed to go back to Texas this year and challenge to be one of the highest drafted wide receivers in the 2026 class and be the wide receiver 1 there. That didn't happen. He declared for the NFL draft, and rightfully so. But he led Texas in receiving touchdowns. He's extremely explosive, averaged over 17 yards per reception in the SEC. And guys, when it mattered most towards the end of the year, we saw Matthew Golden peaking. Memphis, I know you were watching that Arizona State game. I know you were sitting around in the holidays watching that Arizona State game, looking at Cam Scattaboo, and instead you were looking at Matthew Golden going absolutely bonkers. And I know you were watching the SEC championship game because you were at the Big Ten championship game that same day, scouting live in person. So I know you had the SEC one on a little bit later. And I know you saw Matthew Golden absolutely rip to shred a bunch of Sunday players in that Georgia secondary. So if we want to go with the film and the production, it's a little backloaded, but Matthew Golden started really flashing when it mattered most against really, really good people. So Matt, it's also I've heard you for years, Matt, talk about guys with special teams ability, guys who have that like in their profile. Matthew Golden was explosive as a special teamer. So Golden is checking off a lot of boxes here, guys. And he's going to check off a very high draft capital box. So NFL teams are going to have him on the field early. I'm Matthew Golden. I don't want him to be my guy on this. I want to talk Jaylin Noel, but
listen, if you're a burner in college, if you have lots of speed and they're not playing you on special teams, if you're not taking kickoffs, punt returns, you have to ask what the hell is wrong with this guy. It's more like hey, he's using this speed in all areas, in all facets of the game. This makes me feel much better about taking a guy primarily because he's super speedy. And with Burden, Cody Carpentier is in the chat. He likes Burden going 38 to New England.
That's the face melting spot for any wide receiver. That's where I want Jaylin Noel to go.
Right.
That's the spot, Matt. That's 125 targets out the gate for any good rookie wide receiver who lands there. And I brought up, anybody who plays the slot in a Mike Vrabel offense, you sort of get visions of old Patriots going through your head, like the Wes Welker elite usage. You talk about the Julian Edelman elite usage, guys who have 140, 150 targets. That's sort of the landing spot we want to see for a guy that can play the slot. I don't know. Cody Carpentier, though, now is saying Luther Burden, he wants him going the second round. So I don't know what to make of that one. Cody's got me all spun around on that.
Hey, real quick, Theo, on your boy Matthew Golden, I've got a different comp for you. Henry Ruggs. Go Player Profiler, look at Henry Ruggs, look at Matthew Golden, look at where Henry Ruggs got drafted, look at where we're talking about drafting Matthew Golden, and then go look at his college production. I know you said this whole podcast was going to be on vibes. I'm getting the Henry Ruggs vibe from your boy Matthew Golden.
On the field vibes. On the field vibes. Stress it, Memphis. On the field vibes.
Wow. Yeah, so this is where the guys like Alex Dunlap and Cody come in handy. Is this a Henry Ruggs type character off the field where he's going to be doing some drag racing? Or
no, not that.
I can't believe
I'm just
Memphis
saying,
would say these awful things about him.
This is what I'm saying. This is what matters. What would have Henry Ruggs have become had he, been a diligent professional? We don't know. What I do know is the special teams production points me more in that direction. Okay, that's all I'm saying on that. And with Burden, there's a nice little discount there because of the face plant as a junior. And again, if these football guys that really know what they're talking about, like you guys, Cody, etc., they love Burden. It's a burden in my hand. Burden in my hand, man. We're gonna play that in post for the podcast. We'll get it. We can't play it on YouTube, but we will get it in for the podcast. Little Chris Cornell should have won a Grammy for that performance, the Burden in my hand performance. And the Sammy Watkins comp, according to Kelly Horrigan in the chat, Sammy Watkins would have been very, very good. He was very, very good for a while. Could have been a lot better, but he did struggle, especially in the second half of his career. He was addicted to alcohol. And that can not only can that ruin your work ethic, but also makes you bloated. He did. He gained weight. He looked puffy. At the end, he looked puffy. It made sense. Once you heard all this stuff, once this all came out, it made perfect sense. Elic Ayomanor. You like him, Cody? I mean, you like him, Theo?
Yeah, I mean, that's been a guy that we've been on here at Player Profiler for a while. Ayomanor is like this guy that's been flying under the radar because he's been on two terrible Stanford teams. Of course, he sort of came into focus during that Colorado game in 2023, which it was a Friday night game. It was anytime Deion's playing, people have the eyes are on the TV. And this was a game that Colorado was supposed to win. Colorado gets ahead, and then Ayomanor goes absolutely bonkers. Goes 270 yards and just dominates Travis Hunter. It's probably the worst Travis Hunter film as a cornerback that exists out there. So Ayomanor had that in his repertoire. The dominant usage was a little more sporadic with him because, again, the quality of the team was very, very poor. But this is a guy who has the size. He's got the route running ability. He's got the ability to win in the end zone. And he's got a lot of traits that wide receiver ones in the NFL have. Now, is he going to end up being a good wide receiver two as a complimentary guy? Or is he going to end up being on a team where somebody says, you know what, I can feature this guy and he can be a wide receiver one in this offense? I think he's got outcomes. And Matt, now the argument for Ayomanor post NFL Combine gets a lot easier, because we were on him at Player Profiler when, again, we thought he'd be a 4.55 guy. His athleticism is actually elite level. The 4.44, 40, this is like, that is just icing on the cake when it comes to this profile. So for me, Ayomanor might go higher than a lot of people are projecting him. He seems to be like, we have it every single, you guys seen this, where we have like 4 months building up to the NFL draft where we talk about these rookies inside and out. And then we have literally 1 week between the NFL draft and actual rookie drafts where we have to adjust rankings. We won't have to adjust them, but there'll be a lot of sites out there, Matt, that are going to have to adjust their Elic Ayomanor rankings, because I think he's going to end up being a top 35 pick with a chance to go in the back end of the first round. If you're trading into the back end of the first round to get a wide receiver, we saw it last year with guys like Purcell, guys like Xavier Legette, and of course Xavier Worthy going right at the end of the first round. If you're trading into the back end of the first round, it's to get a guy like Ayomanor with those sort of traits.
He ranks 242nd out of more than 1,200 wide receivers in our database. So he is in the 80th percentile all-time athleticism scores on Player Profiler. 112 targets both seasons at Stanford. This guy is super consistent. This stat line is the definition of a professional wide receiver. This is what we wanted Michael Wilson to be, Memphis.
I would rather have Ayomanor than I would Tet McMillan, especially where you're going to get him in rookie drafts. This guy is a smooth operator. Now, I believe Tet McMillan's a better athlete, but there's been a lot of good athletes fail in the NFL. I like the term football player. He's efficient. He's a smooth route runner. He's a good separator. He doesn't have the quote-unquote elite speed, but it doesn't matter. You pair him with a good offense and a good quarterback, I think the sky's the limit for him. And at 6'2", he's not that much shorter than a Tet McMillan. So I'm big on Ayomanor. I saw your face, Matt. Was that surprising that I like it? I'm not saying he's going to be better,
I was
but
very
I
happy.
like him better.
This is my guy. I love that. He's so many great comps. He's explosive, Khalil Shakir. He's Roddy White. There are so many quality players that have this profile going back through time. Amari Cooper, on and on and on and on and on. Big, durable, strong, hard to bring down, smooth operators, can play all positions. You can probably play him at Z initially and see what happens. I love him there. He could slide into slot. You put him in motion. You could just imagine him being the everywhere man on offense. And Theo mentioned the rankings, and you can see our rookie rankings. They've been updated since the combine, and now with and the overall dynasty rankings. Big changes to the overall dynasty rankings after free agency and a bunch of these trades that happened. And it's all part of our Dynasty Deluxe package on Player Profiler, and here's a little bit more about it. If you play in Dynasty, you need Dynasty Deluxe, our premium package for Dynasty Leaguers. We rank over 300 players, updated every week, all year long, and there's a Win Now mode and a Rebuild mode with Superflex and tight end premium controls. And a Dynasty League sync, where you can say, sync down all of my sleeper teams, all my FFPC teams, and then you can browse around your leagues for who has needs, and then you can use our trade finder to see what kinds of trades are happening in leagues that are similar to the one I want to do. Then you can analyze trades using our trade analyzer, which balances the lifetime value, which includes pick values out to like 2028. All of that plus the rookie guide, $25 value, is included. So if you're just in one Dynasty League, Dynasty Deluxe is well worth it. And use your host's promo code, and you can bump up to All In and get $25 off. The promo code is Warzone. Warzone is a promo code. You get All In. Use promo code Warzone. You get $25 off. Memphis gets $25. It's a great deal for everybody involved. And that rookie guide, by the way, coming very, very soon. Right, Theo? Very soon?
Yeah, rookie guide is complete. It's just getting edited, and our layout is gorgeous. I think a lot of people really, really enjoyed it last year. I think this year it's going to be even better. You get my rankings, you get Cody Carpentier's rankings, you get Jax Falcone's rankings, you get John Lobb's rankings, and you get FastDraft's Jagger Mays rankings. So you get 5 different rankers. We rank it in tight end premium. We rank them in PPR. We rank them in Superflex PPR. So you get 3 different scoring formats, 5 different rankings, and we do a lot of player write-ups. We also have some draft strategy in there, ways for you to maximize your rookie drafts, and some bird's eye view looks at this class, look at a couple of historical figures. And you also get, Matt, our awesome NFL player comparisons, which we're known for at Player Profiler. And I think there's going to be some really, really fun ones with this class. So yeah, it is complete. It is out of our hands now, Matt. It is with the editors, and it should be dropping hopefully end of this week, early next. And it's going to be a real tool for anybody looking to crush your dynasty leagues this year, crush your rookie drafts.
Hey, Memphis, who is the best comparable for a Restrepo?
He's a Frankenstein. He's a Frankenstein of every white wide receiver ever. You take a little bit of Wes Welker, a little bit of Julian Edelman, a little bit of Cooper Kupp. He's a coach's kid. He's the guy. I like him because I like PPR. I play in all PPR leagues. He feels like the quintessential PPR wide receiver. We'll draft him in the 3rd round. People won't like him, but I'm just always looking for that Julian Edelman, Wes Welker prototype because those guys score PPR points. They never cost you that wide receiver 1 cost. And if he gets day 2 NFL draft capital, if he goes in the top 100 picks, that's going to tell me a lot. And then you combine that with a good offense. Like Cooper Kupp's not Cooper Kupp if he doesn't land with Sean McVay and the Rams. And Julian Edelman's not Julian Edelman if he doesn't land with Tom Brady. But if he gets in the right spot, the way that he plays the game, he could be that possession guy that gets you Adam Thielen type, low-end target, high-end. No one's ever going to touch Cooper Kupp's 2021. Just a guy I just really like. I'm really fascinated by this guy.
Yeah, his best comp on Player Profiler is actually KJ Osborne, which I like. Kendall Wright. There's a bunch of good comps for him, man. There's a bunch of good comps for him in the database. The catch rate's always right there at 70%. Guy plays some special teams. You'd like to see him play more on special teams. You'd like a few more catches this past year. But what does he do? He actually, though he had a significantly fewer catches, 16 less catches, put up more receiving yards, went from 12.9 to 16.3 yards per reception. Kid's getting better. He's going to command targets. However, Theo, not a fan.
Well, no, it's not necessarily a fan. I just think that he has a limited pathway towards big-time fantasy football viability because Memphis is a guy that we need to land in a situation where someone's going to park him in the slot and use him as a slot wide receiver right away. Now, if that's a Hunter Renfrow situation and that presents itself where a guy can get parked in the slot early in his career and be a heavily targeted guy, I could see it. I think there's also a chance that the team who selects Cam Ward just says, you know what, I'm going to go get his favorite college receiver because it doesn't cost me a whole lot. I'm going to go get Xavier Restrepo in the 4th round. These guys have a great film. We saw it last year with Denver with Troy Franklin when Bo Nix was selected. And go ahead. So I think the pathway is I'll like him if he lands with Cam Ward, which I know seems like a cheap sort of cop-out here, but they did have incredible chemistry together. But with that size, Memphis, this is a little guy. This is a guy where he's strong physically, but he's not elite speed, and I think he's got to be in the slot. So for me, Matt, these slot wide receivers, when they get a ton of targets, they can produce for us, but it just sort of lowers the fantasy ceiling. Now, the good argument for Restrepo is I'm going to get all kinds of great college production, that great college game film at a much, much cheaper price than maybe if there was no Senior Bowl and there was no NFL Combine, Restrepo, I think, would have gone higher. But Senior Bowl was not a great week for him. It was an okay week for him, but there was other wide receivers who just stood out more at the Senior Bowl, and that's been a little bit predictive at the wide receiver spot for a while. So, yeah, I mean, you can get him later, Memphis. So it's not really like you're going out on a limb here and saying I'm flag planting this guy in the 2nd round. Restrepo is the kind of guy that if he lands great, he's going in the 3rd round. If he lands poorly, you're getting him in the 4th round. So I don't see a pathway where he's going to end up like post-NFL draft as a 2nd round rookie pick. I just don't see that one.
And we have pre-NFL draft rookie-only fantasy contests at FastDraft. So get the FastDraft app, go to draftfaster.com, download the app, and the game is called Origins. That's the contest. It's a $10 entry. $25,000 prize pool, $5,000 to first. Last draft that went off, who was in there? Oh, Matty Kiwoom's in there. Cody Carpentier's in there. I mean, there's just a whole bunch of people. Allen was in there. Anna Ninduri's in there. So you're drafted against you're like, oh my God, look at all these people I'm drafting against in the player profiler universe. Yeah, they're all drafting rookies right now. But there are a few rookies that we know are more landing spot dependent. Like Restrepo goes to the Bengals. You love it. You absolutely love it. Restrepo goes to the Browns. You hate it. Right? Restrepo goes to the Lions. Oh my God. He's the number 3 in a team that's going to be playing lots of 11 personnel, and they don't have a wide receiver 3 of consequence on the roster. It's been Josh Reynolds and whoever, right? For years. They haven't been able to find one. Now, Restrepo, that's what they need, right? So you've got a bunch of teams out there, the higher volume offenses. You can think of the Bills. There's a handful of great offenses that could really use a slot receiver like Restrepo. But if Houston drafts him, their offense went in the wrong direction last year as their defense got better, their pass attempts went down, and they just go out and sign Christian Kirk. Restrepo's dead. He goes to Houston. So there's a bunch of places that he could go. Like, what is he going to do on Tampa? He's going to have to wait a year. Right? So you just don't want that. And so in a game like Origins, the way to exploit it is to say, who has the asymmetrical upside where most of the outcomes post-draft, when you're drafting now on Origins, most of these outcomes are positive. That's not Restrepo. That's Ayomanor, maybe, but more running backs. Running backs have more great landing spots that they could really rip post-draft. So that's where you're seeing, I think there's a lot more running backs that are going early now on Origins because they could land very well, and it's a little too dangerous to draft too many wide receivers in these early rookie drafts. That's just part of the strategy that goes into, a rookie only. You might ask, how do you play rookie only best ball? Well, there are no position restrictions. You could draft a bunch of quarterbacks. You could draft Jackson Dart, several quarterbacks, or you could draft all running backs. It's whatever you want to do. Probably drafting, if you had to draft all of one position, I would suggest drafting all running backs, but that's not necessarily what you want to do. You just want to take the player with the most asymmetrical upside heading into the draft at value. Guys like RJ Harvey, even a Cam Scattaboo. There's a bunch of these guys that if they land well, it's to the moon, especially at the running back position, where at wide receiver, we're just hoping they don't get nuked. It's a little bit of a different disposition. With a lot of these wide receivers, you're hoping the draft doesn't destroy them, as opposed to the running backs where you're just excited for the draft. You're like, how good could it possibly get for my guy? And finally, because Memphis is here, code Warzone. Code Warzone, when you're signing up on FastDraft, we use code Warzone. Now, you could use code Truth. That gives you a $25 deposit match. Use code Warzone, get a $50 deposit match. $50 deposit match, $50 to Memphis when you sign up. Code Warzone, baby.
I see in the chat before Paul in the chat is saying, where should we be drafting Tet? I think at the end of the day, Tet's going to end up being a high second-round pick in your Superflex rookie mock draft. If he lands sort of in the area that we think he's going to be selected in the NFL draft, I think that seems about reflective. Now, there's a chance, shout out to Jeremiah Retzlaff, is talking about he's a Green Bay Packer. That one's sort of floating around. Green Bay's that free square where they need a wide receiver one. He would seem to slot in very, very well, would fit in with guys like Jaden Reed, get guys like Tucker Kraft. Christian Watson, of course, is now injured, but they're screaming for a wide receiver one. If he gets that nuts landing spot to Green Bay, then we can adjust things. But I'd say early second is where I think we're going to end up selecting Elic. And the downside would be somewhere late second. I don't see him sliding out of the second round with that profile. I don't know if he's necessarily going to steam up into high first round. I think second round's perfect for a guy like him.
Based on Theo's advice, you're not drafting Tet McMillan on Origins. So in FastDraft, you're like, Tet McMillan's going at the 103, 104. No, thank you. All right. So based on what we just talked about, you're probably more likely to go with a Shadur Sanders, a Travion Henderson, a Quinshon Judkins in the middle of the first round in the Origins rookie game than you would a guy like Tet McMillan or another receiver like a Luther Burden. You could argue that some of these top receiver ADPs are too hot. They're too hot. But again, feel free to exploit the ADPs. That's what it's all about right now. Exploitable ADPs on FastDraft with that Origins tournament. Memphis.
Yes, sir.
You're here.
I am. I'm thrilled to be here.
Okay. Do you have any more thoughts on any of these rookie wide receivers? Ayomanor, Restrepo.
I want to go back to Ayomanor, and I don't want to be too hyperbolic. You mentioned that overall in the history of the database that Ayomanor is 242nd all time. Do you know who's 258th and has a very similar profile? Amari Cooper. Now, again, I'm just using the resources at PlayerProfiler.com. You feel free to use them how you want to. I think he could be a steal again. Oh, and with Restrepo, the one landing spot I wanted to mention was Jacksonville, opposite of a Brian Thomas. He does the exact opposite of what you would want Brian Thomas to do. They just lost Evan Engram.
They just lost Christian Kirk. Theo, isn't that the nuts?
That would be
Jacksonville's the nuts. Yeah,
and they lost Evan Engram, who was a slot heavy usage tight end. So there is no slot wide receiver on Jacksonville. I think the slot is going to get filled on draft night, or on draft weekend, Matt, because they're not going to do it in the first round. I mean, there's some steam where maybe Ted ends up in Jacksonville. I don't really see that one. I think more likely than not, you see them taking chances in like round 2, round 3, and then on day 3. But the slot wide receiver for Jacksonville, that's a really nice landing spot there. Brian Thomas, Matt, Brian Thomas to the moon this year, absolute potential league winner, but he's capped out target share wise. He's 30, 25. It's going to be up there, but it's not going to go to some bonkers level. And a lot of downfield targets when it comes to BTJ. I know they say they're using him a lot in the slot this year, but he's sort of capped with that profile. So yeah, Memphis.
Whoa! Let me ask you a question. I was debating this with Jagger May. Jagger May, the new face of FastDraft, and we just launched the first FastDraft podcast.
I'm going on next week. You're
going to be on it. I'm sure Memphis will be on it. So you get the FastDraft podcast wherever you get podcasts. It'll also be on the Player Profiler podcast channel, and there's a new FastDraft YouTube channel. So that's where it's gonna be posted. It's posting today. I think it's gonna be posting in 4 minutes. So this show is gonna be competing with a video that I did, a podcast I did with. It's great timing, really good time management. To have concurrent shows with me at the same time, really good planning by me. Just kidding, pretty incompetent by the Podfather. So anyway, that's going to be a fun place for us to continue to talk football on the FastDraft channel. We were talking about the upside of Brian Thomas. Is it possible that Brian Thomas in seasonal leagues could be a top 5 pick? Could be a guy that you would rather have over even like a Puka Nacua?
I think the Puka one is interesting. I think that the top 5 is a tough one for Thomas. I'm in a draft now on FFPC where he seems to be going consistently in that 109 to 112 range, Matt.
Yeah. But could he move up a little bit? Maybe not. Maybe right there with Lamb.
I think he is right there with Lamb for me, but I think that most people are going to go with the larger sample size player,
right,
and are not going to change. So he's somewhere in that 105 to 109 wheelhouse, I think, when the money's on the line later in the summer. Again,
what's the big difference, Theo? What's the big difference? Is there a big difference, Memphis, between Trevor Lawrence and Dak Prescott at this point? Is there a big difference?
Not really, and I love the new offense Liam Cohen's bringing. You know, we saw what he did with Chris Godwin last year. I like Brian Thomas. I actually have a question for Theo. He's the Brian Thomas aficionado of all of Player Profiler.
Just
what
say
about Malik
Brian
Nabers?
Thomas. Say I take Brian Thomas over CeeDee Lamb. Just say I'm moving Brian Thomas past Nakua, past all these guys.
Lock it in, Theo.
Yeah, I got Jamar Chase, then I got Brian Thomas.
I mean, Nabers and Thomas, Memphis, those are the kind of reasons why the back end of the first round and potentially a return to zero RB this year are both in the revenge tour. But when it comes down to Brian Thomas versus Malik Nabers, Trevor Lawrence versus whatever New York puts out on the field next year, I'll take it. But at the end of the day, when it comes to Malik Nabers, the chance for him to be a 200 target guy, like no hyperbole, a 200 target guy is in the wheelhouse. I'm so excited about Nabers. I just hit my mic, Matt. But we've seen the last 4 wide receiver 1 overalls have all led the NFL in targets and catches. That's Malik Nabers in a nutshell. So Brian Thomas, I think, has a chance to go full on Josh Gordon. That's the and just break fantasy type wide receiver 1 overall season. A lot of touchdowns, a lot of big plays downfield. But Nabers has the ability to do that too. And Nabers has the ability to absolutely brutalize you underneath as a guy who just gets 15 plus targets in like 5-6 games this year. You can just see it with Nabers, where he leads the NFL in targets, leads the NFL in catches. He is the New York offense. And we have a little bit of a bailout, Matt. If this Jameis Winston bridge quarterback thing comes in there, that would be the really fun ones, because Jameis YOLO balling it to Malik Nabers. So at the end of the day, the correct answer to Brian Thomas and Malik Nabers, you don't have to make that decision right now unless you're a complete sicko like me in some early drafts. But for most of us in redraft, we're going to be able to make that decision a little more educated towards the end of the year. And I think both is an okay response, because both of those guys, Matt, have it in them to go completely bonkers this year. And we saw them do it as rookies. We know they're very talented, and they're in situations where their teams are going to lean on them, not only as the wide receiver 1, but as the offensive focal point. So for me, I'm fine drafting both, but I think Nabers has it in him to lead the NFL in catches. That's usually been a better predictor of wide receiver 1 overall finishes than a guy who could potentially lead the league in touchdown catches. So cop-out answer. Both is a good one.
Yeah, well, I can spoiler alert one thing. We're certainly going to have Brian Thomas over Nico Collins in the Dynasty rankings very 100%. Soon. And then the question is, at what point do we move these two? Like, let's say Winston's the quarterback this year in New York. Moving Nabers ahead of Puka Nacua, yes? In Dynasty, these are the Dynasty rankings.
Yeah, I mean, in Dynasty, it's splitting hairs here. I think they're all in that truly elite tier. I can make an argument for it. I can make an argument for him ahead of Puka Nacua. I think certainly this year matters, Matt, and Nacua now has elite target competition in Davante Adams, a guy that we would expect to have a 25% target share. So sort of the Puka Nacua goes full-on Cooper Kupp 2021 argument took a slight knock when Davante Adams landed there. Just my gut feeling. I love Puka, though. We've seen it. I mean, if you make an argument that, during the Cooper Kupp year, the 2021 year, in what's going to be a very similar offense, you had Robert Woods opposite him, who was a strong wide receiver 2. So we have seen a wide receiver 1 and a wide receiver 2 coexist in that McVay offense. So we've seen it. But for me, in terms of pure talent, in terms of pure athleticism, both of those guys ahead of Puka Nacua. I mean, the NFL kind of told you not to go back to draft capital because Puka's put that completely behind him. But those guys were truly elite, top 20 overall picks, top 20 overall athleticism. Nacua has to get that volume. The Nacua argument involves a ton more volume than Brian Thomas will need. But I don't see LA necessarily getting away from it. But you do see in the past with Sean McVay teams, if one of the wide receivers has that elite matchup, and maybe teams are trying to take away the younger Puka Nacua, he'll target Davante Adams 15 times in a game. and just make that the complete game plan. Adams target, Adams target, Adams target over and over again. So if Adams is healthy, Matt, I mean, I don't know. It's a tough one. But Nacua, for me, I'd have him slightly ahead of those guys. I trust the Rams offense. But in terms of the overall upside, Nabers and Thomas are right there with him for this year's peak outcome.
What about Evan Engram? Evan Engram goes to Denver. He seems pretty teed up. Is this a nice little dynasty buy? Like an older tight end that still has juice?
I think so. Back in the day, the Sonic Truth used to have great show titles like Traylon Burke's breathalyzer test. You know, if we were going to do one of those for this show, we could do Evan Engram gas station boner pills. I absolutely love this landing spot. I mean, Sean Payton came out at the combine. And by the way, thanks to Player Profiler for helping get me a credential. That was an amazing experience. But you hear Sean Payton say, hey, I want a guy to play that Joker role. And then he goes out and hand selects Evan Engram to be that role. And there's no target competition there. It's Cortland Sutton. I like Marvin Mims. He's never really going to be great for fantasy. He's a nice special teamer. He's going to help out there. He brings some speed. I absolutely love this. I don't think he'll break his record for tight end catches in a season, but I will be 0% surprised if he has another 100 catches. Does that sound far-fetched?
No, I mean, I think when we talked about Cortland Sutton, we all like him. Matt, I think last year was a peak outcome for him usage-wise. If you go to Player Profiler, you'll see that Cortland Sutton had the most targets in his career. He had, I believe, the most air yards in his career. And this was a guy that the target share was extremely high. Everything was sort of hyper-focused from Bo Nix targeting Cortland Sutton. He was also surrounded by a bunch of youth at wide receivers, guys like Devon Vele, guys like Troy Franklin, guys like Marvin Mims, and a whole lot of nothing at tight end. And the running back spot lacked, a lot of talent. So for me, Cortland Sutton was in a perfect situation. And to the Broncos' credit, they maximized him last year. But this is not a guy, Matt, that we think is going to go from 135 targets up to 155. In reality, it's probably going to go down this year. In a perfect situation, Cortland Sutton's a 115, 120 target guy. Evan Engram, when we're looking for tight end production, a big shout out to our guy, Andrew Cooper, over at Fantasy Alarm, who's one of the best tight end guys in the industry. It's a very simple formula. You need your tight end to be a top 2 target on the team for him to give you a big, impactful fantasy football performance. There's been like 5 tight ends in history who have scored 200 or more PPR points that did it with less than 95 targets. It just doesn't exist most seasons. So Evan Engram checks off a box where he'll be the number 2 target on the team. And there's a chance, like Memphis said, where he ends up being the number 1 target on the team, and they could park him inside the slot. I don't think it's a traditional joker where they're going to move him around as much, but I think in the slot, and then they'll play him inline sometimes, and Evan Engram can be like that easy button read for Bo Nix to lean on, and then he could take more downfield shots at Sutton, more end zone shots with Sutton. It makes the offense a lot better, and I think they're going to add a running back on draft night. So I think as early as the first round running back, I think might be in play for Denver now. So for us as fantasy, we lose a potential Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren to Denver, which we would have been excited about. But instead, that dream died, so the Omarion Hampton to Denver dream lives. So we're
you like
fine.
Omarion Hampton. Hampton to Denver.
I would love it. I think Hampton might go earlier. There's a lot of Hampton to Dallas steam out there. Hampton may be sliding inside the teens, but in terms of fantasy upside, if you put Hampton on the Denver Broncos, Matt, you're drafting him like 15 overall in redraft this year, and
Judkins,
you're doing it
fine, right? You're fine with Judkins there.
Fine with Judkins. Judkins, I think, slides to the beginning of the second if I had to bet draft capital wise. But so Denver could potentially move down for a Judkins. But yeah, I mean, Denver is going to do something on draft night we're going to like. I got that feeling, Memphis.
You get Omarion Hampton to Denver, especially with like who they have there. Estime, that's the only running back really on the roster. I'm sorry, he's pushing Jeanty for the 101 in single QB leagues and 101 in general. Now, Jeanty's going to wind up in a good spot because I see him mocked a lot to the Raiders, which 2 months ago I wouldn't have liked as much, but now you got Brock Bowers, you got Jacoby Myers, quarterback upgrade, Geno Smith. Jeanty in that offense would probably retain the 101, but Omarion Hampton in Denver We've seen Sean Payton. He's used Mark Ingram. He's used Pierre Thomas. He's used Alvin Kamara. I mean, we've seen every type of running back, and that offense needs one. And the one thing that I liked about Omarion Hampton, again, I got the chance to interview him at the Combine. We asked him about pass blocking. He said, if you don't pass block, you don't get to carry the rock. And that absolutely spoke to me. You got to be able to pass block, because this is a guy who had 38 receptions last year without Drake May. Good catcher of the football. If he gets a PPR role at his size and athleticism in Denver, as the FastDraft ad says, to the moon.
Yeah, it's pretty. But the problem with Jeanty to Las Vegas is he's going to have to outplay Dylan Lobby. I mean, I don't know. Good luck with that. Good luck with that, Ashton Jeanty. Good luck outplaying Dylan Lobby. And he's going to have to get. It's a pretty big roadblock to get past in the depth chart is Dylan Lobby there. So good luck to Jeanty. I hope he can do it. You know, we'll see what happens. Right, guys. Right.
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
right, guys.
I don't know.
Right.
Memphis, I mean, that one would be, I think it would just make the 102 much more valuable for me. I think for me, Jeanty goes 6 to Vegas. I'm not going to knock him and drop him down. I think like the Chip Kelly offense there would be really good for him. We expect a pretty high tempo offense. We expect a lot of plays run. And with all due respect to Long Island's Dylan Lobby and Raheem Mostert, who signed, which was actually the Raheem Mostert was actually a pretty smart signing, because they get a dirt cheap backup running back, and I think they're going to address their RB1 on draft night. Whether it's Ashton Jeanty at 6, or do they say, Matt, we love Jeanty, but we're going to do something different here. We're either going to trade down, and we'll just get, like you said, a Judkins, a Travion Henderson, and we'll reunite one of the Ohio State backs with Chip Kelly and just go that direction. I think that's sort of also in the wheelhouse. But I think Vegas probably takes Jeanty at 6. If I had to bet money on it, that's the way they go. And if it's Jeanty at 6 and it's Omarion Hampton at 20, that's your 1-2, not only in single, but also in Superflex. And that's and I like Cam Ward. But I think at the end of the day, you're talking about 2 running backs, Matt, where we saw what happened with Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs. They get drafted in. They're both ranked very highly. Where are they at right now on Player Profiler's Dynasty Rankings at the running back position? Right there at the very top. And I think that's sort of the pathway that Jeanty and Hampton would have if they get that sort of elite draft capital. And they're both really, really, really good. So at the end of the day, that sort of would be the 1-2 in Superflex for me, Memphis. Not necessarily leapfrogging Jeanty would not be my takeaway, but sort of leapfrogging the QB1 and leapfrogging a Tet McMillan, even if he lands in a great landing spot like Carolina at 8. So that would be sort of my 1-2 if Hampton goes to Denver.
If there's a way to do a prop bet that the Bears take a running back in round 2, I want that. I mean, the reason they're not going to take a running back in round 1 is because they have these 2 picks. They have the Carolina Panthers pick at pick 39, and then they have their own pick at pick 41. I mean, this is exactly where great value running backs start in the draft. Do you think Judkins makes it to 39? If not, is it Caleb Johnson?
I think Chicago, I don't know which way they go. And also say this, Matt, why is Chicago not going to be in play for Hampton at 10 if they like Jeanty so much at if he falls to them at 10, and then we're seeing Hampton pushed up to potentially going 12 to Dallas? Chicago has to at least think about that. There's been some Caleb Johnson connections to Chicago because people like him in sort of a David Montgomery role, maybe an elevated David Montgomery role because DeAndre Swift is certainly no Jahmyr Gibbs if we're talking about a direct lion to bear comparison in the Ben Johnson offense. Caleb, I think you can get a little lower than those 2 picks, though. I think Caleb's going to probably go in that 45 through 60 range, which is still really, really good. So that's sort of where I'm at.
They need offensive line help, and you've got Banks, you've got Campbell, you've got Membu, you've got a bunch of options at offensive line there for the Bears. Josh Simmons. So they've got several options, 6'6", 320 offensive lineman right there. And again, Will Campbell from LSU, he's 6'6", 320 exactly. I like him to go to Chicago. I think that's what they should do. That's the chalk move because they do need offensive line. They have a rookie quarterback. I think that's their priority. knowing that they have these picks in the second round, and that's really a much better use of capital if you're going to be taking a running back. And but they could get
Would it surprise me? No, that the Bears were to do that, because they just traded for 2 guards and then signed a center in free agency. They did really good on the interior. I'd love to see them add a tackle. That's the way you build a team. I'm looking at a mock draft right now that has them taking Caleb Johnson 39 overall. I think that's the move. There are so many guys. That's the move. You get one of the big tackles that you referred to at 10. You come back with Caleb at 39. You've got DJ Moore. You've got Roma Dunze. You've got Cole Kmet. Your offense is set. I agree wholeheartedly, and I think Caleb Johnson in that David Montgomery role would do very, very well. The problem with Caleb Johnson is I think he winds up at 21 to the Steelers.
It's very possible the Steelers are very much in play for a running back. Now, if the NFL drafts 2 running backs in the top 10, we will know that they do not have the analytics firepower in their front office that they have claimed to employ the last 10 years. Everyone's been talking about how they're all analytics focused. If they hit the reset button and we're right back to drafting 2 running backs in the top 10, then just crumple your papers up and just throw them out. I mean, get out of here, guys. I mean, I want to see it. I want to see the overreaction to Saquon Barkley just won the Eagles a Super Bowl narrative. I really want to see that, and it would culminate in 2 running backs in the top 10. But I am going to give credit to NFL teams that they're not going to fall for it.
I don't know. It's also a reaction. I don't think it's necessarily only a reaction to the Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley steam this year and the success they had. I think it's also a reaction to Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs, and a little bit to the Devon Achane, because we saw, and I realized that was a 3rd-round pick, Matt, but NFL teams are chasing big plays out of the running back position. I think that's going to push some guys like Travion Henderson up a little bit higher. And this is also just a special year where the talent at the position, the NFL realizes that this class actually does have more good running backs easily than 2026 and 2024 combined. So it's just reflective of, this is the draft class where you want to take shots. I think you're going to see more and more teams actually take double tap shots at the running back position. Some of the teams that don't take that early round 1, round 2 running back, I think are going to say, you know what? I can go get DJ Giddens in round 3 and then go get Brashard Smith in round 4 and just have those 2 guys and let them kind of fight it out for touches behind whoever my running back 1 is. And then a year later, that's my 1-2 in the backfield. I think you're going to see that sort of situation from some running back needy teams, maybe more so than we've seen in the past. Saw it last year with the Jets chasing their RB2 spot, drafted 2 guys that we sort of like in Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis. And then if you want to go way back in the day, the 2017 class, where that was the class that this class is trying to reach. 2017. We've talked about it here on Sonic Truth. Does this class have the juice to get to 2017 levels? Maybe it does. We saw in that class, what did Green Bay do? Green Bay waits till day 3. They double tap Aaron Jones and they double tap Jamal Williams. Of course, both those guys had NFL success. So I think you could see that this year. So it's a really, really, really fun class.
I wonder who the Darius Geis is in this class.
That's a fun one.
We had Henry Ruggs and Darius Geis in the same show. I wasn't expecting that.
I'll just say because the last podcast that I recorded was with Anand and Duri with Decision Point, so I'm still in that mindset. If a team like the Steelers, who does not have a 2nd round pick, if they blow their 1st rounder on a running back and then don't have a 2nd rounder, and so essentially they're using 1 pick at in the top 100 on a non-running back, that would be embarrassing. I know they're going to do it. They have the glaring need. I know when they put up their board and they have all their different units and they're like, our biggest need area is running back. All we have is Kenneth Gainwell and Jaylen Warren. It would break my heart because they actually don't need more than that. They could just draft a day 3 running back with Warren and Gainwell and be great. They would get just as much production out of that position as they would need, but they're not going to do that. I don't know. I'm conflicted. I always say this, like, this is the year we find out who these NFL front offices really are. But again, this is another year where we find out who they really are. What do you guys think of Gainwell though in Pittsburgh?
I think, if anything, the Gainwell signing makes me think that Jaylen Warren might be the guy this year. And we've been sort of waiting for this. I don't want to get in trouble with Jaylen Warren. Memphis, you bring up that Pittsburgh could easily add a rookie running back that, and not necessarily even on day one, but they can maneuver around, end up with a running back we like. And at the end of the day, Warren as the RB2, Gainwell as the RB3 / special teams guy, that would sort of make them a better team. Gainwell could end up being a thorn in the side, Matt. It's been a guy, like, on a per game basis when he's gotten opportunities, he's scored, he's got a decent amount of touchdowns, but he's not an NFL starting running back, and he's not really a threat to be a starting running back. So Jaylen Warren has always been a guy that runs violently for a small guy, is elusive, can catch the football. He's got a lot of traits we like for fantasy. I don't want this to end up being a Mike Davis situation, an Alexander Madison situation, where we chase a guy up because of the perceived opportunity in front of him. But with Warren, I think he's better than those guys because we've seen it. We've seen him finish as an RB2 2 seasons ago. So, like, for me, I don't want to push Warren up. I sold a Warren share for somebody that wanted to overpay for him the other day.
Thank you.
I'm pragmatic with it, Matt. But I'm not looking to dump Warren shares either because this is my sell window. But if somebody wants to come bring the heat on an offer, I'm open-minded. I think there's a range of outcomes here where Warren ends up being a guy that's really helpful for you to have on your dynasty roster this year, though. So Warren, writing's on the wall, Memphis. Mike Tomlin likes guys that know his system.
Well, I'm going to default to the offensive coordinator and Arthur Smith, who's had his success with somewhat Najee Harris and Derrick Henry. He likes the big back. Like, this feels like Ollie Gordon.
He had an RB1
Ollie
season
Gordon.
He had an RB.
Warren being, I don't know, like more of a weapon than a running back. And if you're getting rid of him, like, what did you get for him? You said you moved a piece of Jaylen Warren the other day. What was the return?
I had a trade where I gave up a Cole Kmet and a Jaylen Warren for 2 seconds. I was printing.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Listen, guys, I'm not running a popsicle stand over here. I'm making money playing Dynasty Fantasy Football.
How do you do this?
Because I'm standing on business, guys. That's how I play Dynasty.
Oh,
he's out here robbing
my
people.
Stomach hurts.
I'm not even. I'm in the streets, Memphis. I'm in the streets.
Oh, God, how do you pull this off? How do you look yourself in the mirror after doing this to these poor people you're in these leagues with?
Listen,
have they not learned? It's like if Gremminger, if Theo sends you a trade request, the answer is probably no. Just no.
Listen, that was actually sent to me. It was sent to me. So that one, I also know how to hit the accept button here, Memphis. So, at the end of the day, but Jaylen Warren, so it's funny, guys. Jaylen Warren's one of these players where I have a ton of exposure to him. I have a ton of exposure to Jaylen Warren in Dynasty because, Matt, he was very easy to add, and he was an undrafted free agent, and he's one of those guys that just stays on your Dynasty roster forever. And I had him, of course, on every Najee Harris team. And over the years, you trim a little Najee Harris here and there. But Jaylen Warren's been a guy I've held on to. And when he has opportunities, he's put up production. Last year, end of the year, he put up 2 weeks in a row. So Warren's this is a obvious sell window. But again, I'm not selling just to sell with Warren, guys. Because Memphis, like you said, maybe they do add an Ollie Gordon, but then Warren gets all of the targets out of the backfield, and he becomes sort of what he was in 2023. 2023, that was what he was doing.
Gainwell can catch the ball a little bit.
Don't just assume this is going to be the Warren show adding Gainwell. This is the big danger. This is why you need to dump Jaylen Warren. Flip him. I think that you could be even more aggressive. I know that you got just a gift, like a little bluebird on your windowsill with this trade, you pushed accept, and you said, "Hey, little birdie," and you fed him a little, and then you got a little 2 second rounders. But I think it would be in your best interests if you went out and let your leagues know, hey, Jaylen Warren's available.
You have to say Pittsburgh Steelers starting running back Jaylen Warren when you announce it to the league chat.
He's very available. He's an undrafted, undersized running back who's not super explosive. He does the job out of the backfield. That's about it. in terms of difference-making ability. He isn't even you couldn't even say for sure that he is the best receiver out of the backfield in this team now. They have Gainwell. So now is the time to sell. Now is the time to sell, because it's not just about, Caleb Johnson. It's about Ollie Gordon or Martinez or all these guys that they could draft later in day 3. If they draft a running back before the 3rd round, they're doing it all kinds of wrong. But very easily, 3rd round, Pittsburgh has pick 83. That would be the pick I circle for a running back.
I like that Damian Martinez to Pittsburgh one, Matt. That's one that I would get excited about with that big frame. He sort of would fit in very well with what they need, and he would sort of keep Jalen Warren afloat as a receiver out of the backfield. So, yeah, I like the Martinez one. That's a fun one.
Afloat is the operative word, where you could have both sides of it, where you could dump him now, and then post-draft you could go add some more Warren. That would be such a Theo thing to do, be on the right side both ways. Your rookie wide receiver is a guy who just looks like a total badass to me.
Jaylin Noel, that's my guy. Wide receiver 6 overall, with a chance to move up post NFL draft. I think he's going to go in the top 40. This is a guy who completely shredded the NFL combine. I mean, not only had a good combine, but had a great combine. Jaylin Noel had 7 touchdowns over 50 yards as an Iowa State Cyclone. This past year, he had an 80-catch, 1,200-yard, 8-touchdown season. And Matt, he did that opposite Jaden Higgins, another wide receiver who we really like. Those two guys were the first pair of Big 12 wide receivers to finish with 1,000 yards each on the same team since CeeDee Lamb and Hollywood Brown. So last time we saw two guys do this in the Big 12, they both had NFL success. You talk about special teams success. Jaylin Noel was co-Big 12 Player of the Year because he's an elite punt returner, also was a great kick returner at Iowa State. And then, Matt, we talk about guys who can tear up the Senior Bowl. Jaylin Noel was one of the best players at the Senior Bowl. Came there. Of
course he was.
Shredded it. Absolutely shredded it.
Of course he did. Dude, his ears are as wide as his neck.
Yeah, and Matt, and we talk about the combine. So the Senior Bowl, he was already on the run, on the rise. At the combine, he goes in and weighs 195, 194 here. So like 5'10", 194. This is a guy, though, that had 23 reps on the bench press, had 4 more reps than any other wide receiver there. Very
because
strong.
He has 29-inch arms. He has short arms.
He's a beast. He's a beast, though. And then
but he's
41
a beast.
and a half.
If you're going to be a slot flanker, you don't need long arms. Doesn't matter.
And I think he's a slot that can also bump outside because of his strength and his speed. 4.39 40, 41 and a half inch vertical. Was a 68% slot guy at Iowa State, but they also would move Higgins inside and play the slot, and Noel would go play outside. He can win downfield. He's got the strength to do it. I don't want to say the player because I don't want to get the people hyped. And I don't think he's going to hit this. But some of the ways that teams use Amon-Ra St. Brown, they can use Jaylin Noel. And that's sort of the guy where he falls in that top 40. We talked about New England. Cody Carpentier wants Luther Burden to go there. I want Jaylin Noel to go there. I also think Tennessee's an underrated landing spot. Tennessee is a place that's devoid of youth and speed at the wide receiver spot. Jaylin Noel would check off both boxes there for them. You talked about Jacksonville. I think Jaylin Noel in the second round would make a lot of sense. So Jaylin Noel, I think there's a lot of outs there for him. Senior Bowl, Combine, 80 catches, 1,200 yards, 8 touchdowns, big playability, the ability to play the slot, the ability to move around. Jaylin Noel's it, guys. That's my guy right now. I love him. Wide receiver 6 overall in this class, and a guy that I think could move up after the NFL draft.
Better than Burden, right? Why isn't he better than Burden? What's the big difference? Burden was hyped earlier in his career, more of a Devy guy. Noel breaks out as a senior. Stranger things have happened, man. He's best comparable to Rashee Rice. This is a Rashee Rice career arc.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you make a great argument there. I think at the end of the day, I'm keeping Burden where he's at because I expect the draft capital to correct. I think Burden's going to be selected earlier in the first. I think Noel is a little bit more of a second. But yeah, they're right there. They're side by side for me, really, Matt. But again, Noel, I think I'm going to be able to get a little bit of a discount. I also think that Noel is a guy that people are not going to necessarily chase up their rookie draft boards. There's a certain spot. I don't think he necessarily rises into the first round.
No.
So, I mean,
No.
Noel, for me, guys, this is fantasy football success. And Matt, special teams, elite special teams. He had like two kick returns over 30 yards like last year.
Yeah.
All these punt returns, I think he was close to leading the nation in yards per punt return. Like, he's explosive, super explosive.
He's incredible at football. Whenever you see a guy that's this good at football, understanding how to get leverage on defenders, understanding the nuances of the position, and then he goes out and he runs a 4.39 and he has incredible 99th percentile burst. My God. And he's a hard worker, and he's like a true professional with like a rocked up body. You're like, well, what am I missing? Like, why wasn't he more productive? Oh, because he was sharing a field with a guy who is an even bigger all-purpose athlete. I mean, that's the only reason. Had he been at another school without the, elite target competition, guy would have posted what? 13, 14, 1,500 yards? This is how you can extract value in rookie drafts, is to find guys that weren't quite as productive for whatever reason, and target competition is a great thing to look for. And the Breakout Finder app has teammate score, that metric, and the Breakout Finder, the new breakout ratings are coming out very soon in the next week or two. And again, you can read about Jaylin Noel and our full write-up on him in the rookie guide that's going to be launched very soon as well on Player Profiler. It's part of the Dynasty Deluxe package that we talked about. And this class, man, is just, as you start to process how good is Jaylin Noel, how good is Elic Ayomanor, and you start to think about, okay, we could get 3 to 5 breakout wide receivers as rookies. It's very possible. We talked about, what if Restrop lands well? Now with the preposterous depth that we have at running back, I'm about to go on the Undroppables podcast later today. And so I am going to litigate this debate with Jax Falcone of this class. Like, he just buried me. I came in strong. I said this running back class is so good for fantasy. I think that this class is competitive with 2024. And he buried me. He buried me with Brian Thomas and Nabers, and I gave up. I was like, oh, stop it. No, I'm dead already. Right? McConkey, no! Okay, he got me. Right? He got me. But the 2024 running back class was just so full of duds, where you're dumping Trey Benson on people, right? It's just, I'm holding a candle for Blake Corum, like he's like my last hope. For fantasy football, for fantasy points in the years ahead, you could absolutely see in the next year or two this class surpassing in single quarterback leagues for Dynasty the overall lifetime value of the 2024 class. It is possible because of the Noels and the Ayomanors. And if these wide receivers can be even remotely competitive, one or two of them with the Lad McConkeys, the problem is then what ends up happening is Odunze breaks out. And it's like that class is just such a preponderance of receiver talent that it's like a wet rope you just can't quite catch if you're this class. But it's more competitive now that we've seen what happened at the Combine than when we had our debate with Jax pre-Combine. So I'm excited to again relitigate that with Jax post-Combine, knowing we had these Jaylin Noels that could be a real ripcord that we could pull. At the end of the day, in Superflex, there's no comparison. You can't compete with the quarterbacks from last year. Drake May, Jaden Daniels, you can't compete, right? But in single quarterback leagues, at least we've got a debate on our hands.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how you view classes, Matt, because Brock Bowers is going to be better than any tight end in this class. But I'm going to also have, when it comes to Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland, guys that could each be top 5 in at the tight end position, like that sort of level of player. there's certainly more depth at the tight end spot. I would argue wide receiver might have more depth. Like when we look at the 2024 class, it's truly elite at the top. Brian Thomas, Malik Nabers, Ladd McConkey, Marvin Harrison, Xavier Worthy. That's really, really, really good.
I mean,
but when you start going a little lower, though, this class might have wide receiver 6 through 12 kick off. We've got a lot of athleticism. We've got a lot of guys who are going to step in, fill roles on NFL teams. Then you've got some guys who we can make an argument that the ceiling is higher than the market reflects. Guys like Jaden Higgins, guys like Jalen Noel, guys like Elic Ayomanor, who are moving up. And we'll end up having, at the end of the day, I think we'll have a similar number of wide receivers drafted in the first round that we did in that 2023 class. I think 4 first-round picks, maybe even a 5th one sneaks in there. So, and then running back, it's not even close. Running back, again, 2026 and 2024 combined won't have more running back success than what we're going to get out of this class with elite draft capital. So for me, this is a better class as long as you don't need a quarterback. Quarterback changes things. Certainly the Superflex drafter is going to say, I could use a few more quarterbacks.
Of course.
But at the end of the day, the one-off, the tight end, wide receiver, running back, you got to be excited right now.
If you go back and look at the winning teams from the FastDraft Origins tournament last year, they weren't getting any production from their round 5 and 6 players. It was a relatively shallow draft class. You see these teams that were winning Origins, right? That had Jaden Daniels and Braylon Allen, Bucky Irving, Tyrone Tracy. Who was their 6th round pick? Like Brendan Rice. Zeros. They're eating zeros from last year. The depth was not there at the skill positions. Whereas this year on Origins, that fast draft tournament, I mean, I'm looking at the ADPs right now. Right, starting with like player 50, Jarquez Hunter. Right? You weren't getting this level of talent.
No.
Ricky White, Luke Lachey. Lachey? Lachey. I don't know. Lachey?
I think it's Lachey.
Let's say like the boy band guy?
Nick Lachey.
Like Nick Lachey? Is he related to Nick Lachey?
Could be.
Jaden Blue, he's going to get touches. Ty Felton, he had a good combine. LaQuint Allen, Terrence Ferguson, Khalil Munnings, he's going to get some between the tackles carries. Mitchell Evans from Notre Dame, tight end from Notre Dame. Donovan Edwards, he's going to get some touches. Raheem Sanders, why isn't he higher? Marcus Yarns, he should be higher. There's just, you're just going to get a lot more production from rounds 5 and 6 on Origins this year. It's interesting.
Somebody in the Origins tournament is going to hit on somebody, like you said, Matt, in that 45 through 60 range on Origins. You'll find a guy like a Marcus Yarns. One of these rookie sleepers is going to fire up. The opportunity presents himself, and it's not just opportunity, but it's the talent combined with the opportunity, and that could really result in something big in fantasy. So yeah,
there was none of that last year, Theo. There was nothing. The one guy that did anything from rounds 5 and 6? Vele. That was it. It was a desert. It was a talent desert in the round 6 and 7 undrafted. There was nothing there. There are going to be so many undrafted running backs that end up commanding touches this year from the draft. Don't get drafted, and they sign on as a UDFA, and running back X, who shows up at the facility, thinks he's fine. DeMarcado shows up at the facility, thinks he dodged one. Ronnie Rivers thinks he dodged one in the draft, shows up and is like,
they all need to worry about, we're in this Origins draft. By the way, I'll be in Tennessee for spring break with my son for baseball. I can't do fast draft in Indiana. I can do it in Tennessee. I will be all about some Origins draft. I'm always looking for the next James Robinson. Who is that undrafted free agent type guy who just lands and then has a big rookie RB1 season? I'll throw out a guy that I like that I don't know where he's going on fast draft right now, but Woody Marks. He's 37 years old. He's got a family of 4, and he's a grown ass man. He'll be 24 when the season starts. But that guy had 83 catches, 48 catches, 23 catches, 47 catches in 4 years of college. So what is that? About 200 total college catches. He could come in and be a PPR guy. So that's a guy that I like.
There's a lot this year, and
he's
also
going high.
There's a lot this year, guys, that are going to get pushed down. The NFL is going to draft a ton of these running backs, Matt. It's also going to create sort of mental gymnastics for drafters to have to like re-rank these guys post NFL draft. So yeah, definitely an interesting one with where the hit rate's going to be in a tournament like this when it comes to rookie running backs.
Round 3, pick 28, Jaden Higgins. Pick 29, RJ Harvey. That's the spot. And then Milroe before that. So you got Noel, Milroe, Higgins, Harvey. That's the end of the third round on FastDraft in the Origins tournament. That you absolutely have to love.
Damian Martinez and Giddens at 31-32 is pretty enticing too, Matt.
Well, in the chat, someone from the Pittsburgh area who's been reading up on the Pittsburgh beat writers, Slayer Stacker, he writes in and says that Pittsburgh loves DJ Giddens. I don't know where he's getting that, but he thinks that's true. Maybe they have a scheduled visit. This is Giddens in the third round, or is Giddens more of a fourth or fifth rounder?
I think athletically, with the ability to absorb volume with the combine that Giddens had, there's a chance he does go in the third round. That if we said if there was no Bashal Tutin, DJ Giddens would be way more talked about as just a pure athleticism guy. And then you put that on top of a guy who had 1,300 plus rushing yards this year for Kansas State. I believe he had 20 touchdowns over the last 2 seasons. Giddens is a guy that a lot of people like. I know Derek Brown of Fantasy Pros had a RJ Matthews comparison, Matt, which I kind of liked, but then there's been a little pushback on that one. But sort of that really athletic back who's got the size and potentially, like you said, round 3 capital.
Fellas, this was great. Final words, final thoughts, final rookies that you want to talk about today?
I just want to give a shout out to the Dynasty Warzone. I know, Matt, you're heading on the Warzone. I was just on the Warzone, but this is peak Dynasty Warzone. It's been awesome to see the Dynasty Warzone just grow and grow and grow with us here at Player Profiler over the last couple of years. Memphis and Jerry absolutely crushed it. That is a podcast that is very, very near to my heart and one that's constantly in my rotation. These guys have a lot of hits. So if you want to make money in Dynasty and you want to do well in your rookie drafts, Dynasty Warzone, if you go back with their track record over the last 3-4 years, they've done things that are against the grain, but have ended up helping you make money in Dynasty. They were higher on consensus than James Cook. They were higher on consensus on multiple running backs that have hit. So Memphis, you were all over Jahmyr Gibbs, is a guy you want on every one of your teams. These guys are really, really good. And it's also, like the Sonic Truth, an entertaining podcast where it's never like a boring moment. You never feel like you're listening to a bunch of nerds on the Dynasty Warzone. You feel like you're listening to guys who really talk the talk. And I've competed against Memphis in Dynasty leagues. Memphis is a real one. So listen to Dynasty Warzone every Sunday, and you can watch it on our YouTube channel as well. Memphis, you're the man.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on, and it's always, when I got the email from Matt, hey, would you like to jump on the Sonic Truth? I'm like, hell yeah, let me, make some arrangements. The one rookie that I just wanted to throw out there real quick was Quinshaw Judkins. I'm a size whore, 6 foot, 221, 4'8". I think he's currently RB5 in most rankings. He's the guy. He's the guy that if I can't get Omarion Hampton, right, I'm going to go out of my way to get Quinshaw Judkins. Nothing against Travion Henderson or Caleb Johnson. That's the dude. It's like, you want the original, you want Omarion Hampton, but if you miss and you can't get that pick, cool. Don't sleep. Get him. Outside of that,
this is what I'm saying. I don't know why in any format anyone is drafting Tet McMillan over these Ohio State running backs.
Thank you.
What are you doing? Like, even on Origins, I'm like, I see these Origins drafts go off, and I see McMillan go before an Ohio State running back, and I'm like, guys, I don't know. That's not what I would do. But, I mean, it's your money. Do what you want. Sunday nights. That's the key. Sunday nights. I love your time spot. Tune in on the Player Profiler YouTube channel. Go search out the Dynasty Warzone wherever you get podcasts. Check them out. They do great work there and some common sense stuff. I love how Theo was touting how you were way out ahead on Jahmyr Gibbs. That was I don't know if I would.
I took a beating on that.
I wouldn't brag about.
No,
he was going for that sleeper Jahmyr Gibbs. Yeah,
he was going for that. He was going for Jahmyr Gibbs over a number of the quarterbacks in that draft class. So,
and I was going on him. I felt about Jahmyr Gibbs the way I feel like Omarion Hampton. We had a clear-cut 101 in Bijan Robinson, and that's cool. I'm just telling you, the guy that we're looking at number 2, which was Jahmyr Gibbs, can push number 1.
Okay. That's fair. That's fair. I feel the same way about Hampton. We're on the same page, man. We're on the same page. I mean, I get it.
We're going to fight Theo for drafting Tet McMillan.
Jeanty's great. We like Jeanty, but Hampton, I mean, it's not that big of a difference. The gap is not that big. And especially if he lands well, it's going to be very exciting. And this idea that people are drafting these wide receivers, this isn't the year, man. Last year was the year to draft wide receiver. This is the year to draft running back. It really, geez, man, I'm such a simpleton. It's just that simple, isn't it?
Draft running backs, trade for wide receivers.
Thank you for unmuting your microphone. That's it for today. From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the host, the research they do, the production costs? Go to PlayerProfiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, data analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.